D&D Rangers are a versatile class dipping their toes in both the nature magic of druids and the martial combat of fighters. Still, Rangers are by far the one class out of the 12 main classes that gets the most shit. It's at the point where I think the most popular phrase in the D&D community is Ranger bad. A phrase that seems to have been said more and more after the release of the 2024 version of the class. But rather than simply adding fire to the flames, I'd like to explore why. Why are Rangers bad? What's going on with this specific class that's different from all the other classes? What's the issue with Rangers? If you ask me, it's a lack of identity. You see, in D&D, each class has a unique identity, which, according to Class Design 101, is, quote, the culmination of its concept and its mechanics. For example, a rogue's conceptual identity is that of a stealthy and skilled assassin. This is conveyed by the way they use sneak attacks when fighting their opponents. Their first level ribbon feature, Thieves' Cant, also shows that rogues are of a darker side of society, with their own hidden language. Their conceptual identity is why, when we think of a typical rogue, we think of a darkly dressed hooded figure with daggers. Meanwhile, from a mechanical standpoint, a rogue's identity is that of an agile and opportunistic damage dealer. That identity is reflected from the very first levels in their sneak attack, cunning action, and the fact that they have proficiency with light armor and lighter weapons, while their many skill proficiencies convey their specialities. The same goes for the other classes like wizards, druids, and clerics. They all have a strong, defined identity. Rangers, however, have an identity that is weak at best. People in general struggle to define what a ranger in a fantasy world is, but let's take a look at how rangers in D&D are defined. Quote, far from the bustle of cities and towns, past the hedges that shelter the most distant farms from the terrors of the wild. Amid the dense packed trees of trackless forests and across wide and empty plains, Rangers keep their unending watch. Basically, in 2014 5th edition, Rangers were land wardens who just kinda roamed a specific area alone and defended it against specific types of creatures. Personally, I'm not a fan of this as a class identity. It's way too specific and it's also not that interesting to me. I find it hard to come up with characters that fit with that fantasy because the concept is too specified. A land warden is a very specific thing, and we can see this problem spread into the mechanics of the class as well. Their first level features Favored Terrain and Natural Explorer both focus on survival, tracking, and traversing terrain, which are elements that pretty much no other class focuses on. The issue is, because of the Land Warden concept of the class, these features become very situational. For example, Favorite Enemy lets you choose one type of creature for which you have advantage on survival checks to track and intelligence checks to recall information about. Besides this being a pretty weak ability in general, it only works with one type of creature, meaning that unless that specific type of creature is somehow present, this ability is useless. While more useful, Natural Explorer has the same issue. Natural Explorer lets you choose one type of natural environment that you are adept at traveling and surviving in. You can choose between Arctic, coast, desert, forest, grassland, mountain, swamp, or the Underdark. While traveling in this terrain for an hour or more, you get a whole bunch of benefits like difficult terrain doesn't slow your group's travel, and while tracking other creatures you also learn their exact numbers, their sizes, and how long ago they passed through the area. And even stuff like when you forage, you find twice as much food as you normally would. But once again, the moment you are no longer in a favorite terrain of yours, none of this matters. It's once again a consequence of having a class concept centered around defending an area against specific type of Pokemon. Even if you create a ranger character like Vexalia from Vox Machina that isn't a land warden, they're still going to be affected by it, because that's the assumption the base class is built on. You don't run into this problem in the same way with the rest of the classes in D&D. Take sorcerers as an example. The main concept of a sorcerer is that of a gifted mage whose magical powers are granted to them from something like their bloodline. This concept provides a foundation but leaves a lot of room to create many different types of characters. Take Imogen and Lautner from Campaign 3. They're both sorcerers but both very different characters. For context, the reason I'm only focusing on the first 2 levels of the class is because they are pretty important in setting the identity of the class. It's kind of the whole foundation of it. And the issues with rangers are quite apparent early on even. Also, I don't want this to sound like I don't want rangers in the game, because I actually really like the idea of having a survival and exploration focused class. It's different from the rest of the core classes, and I like that. I just think the 2014 5th edition execution of the class is not the way to go. Well, what about the updated 2024 version of the class? Well, about that. The 2024 version of Rangers are still hanging on to the Land Warden idea, but none of their abilities have anything to do with that. Now, their first couple levels look like this. They have nature-themed spellcasting just like before, but they have it from level 1, which makes a lot more sense than level 2. Their favorite enemy no longer has anything to do with a favorite enemy, but instead just gives them Hunter's Mark for free. Their Natural Explorer feat is now replaced with Deft Explorer, which just gives them expertise in a skill and proficiency in 2 languages. And they still get a fighting style. I don't know about you guys, but to me, those features don't make a ranger sound like a land warden. They make them sound more like nature-themed magic warrior who studied abroad. I think it's pretty clear that what has happened here is a consolidation and simplification of their previous features. But why? I don't know for sure, but I think it's due to something we haven't looked at yet. Something that has more to do with the way we players and game masters run our games. You see, 2014 rangers are supposed to be wilderness experts, ones who become especially useful when quests take the party on long journeys. They are the ones that can lead the party safely through mountainous terrain and in a timely manner. They are the ones able to help keep the party alive and not starving. They can gather twice as many resources from foraging, a feature that is really cool actually, if foraging is a thing of value. Like I said before, 2014 Rangers lean into the exploration and survival side of D&D. A side of D&D that sadly not a lot of groups like to focus on much, if at all. I think this is because it rarely feels important, and most DMs don't know how to run it even if they wanted to. It's a topic I'd like to visit in a separate video and see if I could build a solution for. The result of this is that a lot of the time, even when rangers finally got to spend time in their favorite terrain, it often wasn't all that important. So, the designers took those features and consolidated them. Instead of a favorite enemy that also gives you proficiency in that creature's language, you get more Hunter's Mark. Instead of having all of these benefits in certain terrain, you get 2 languages and expertise in a skill. It's a generalization of features. This might seem like the perfect solution for the ranger. After all, I've just spent the whole first part of this video talking about how the problem with the ranger's features were that they were too situational. And here they have taken those features and removed the situational aspect of them. Problem solved, right? No. I think they may have diagnosed part of the problem accurately, but this treatment is not the right one. What this change has done is that it has taken a class with a unique idea but a weak identity, and it has removed those 2 things from the class. They took rangers with their land warden concept, and instead of taking that concept and those situationally specific features and expanding them to be useful more often, they completely removed them. But they still kept the land warden conceptual identity, even though it's no longer visible in the mechanics anymore. So now all we have is a class whose identity is almost non-existent, and its only wilderness related feature is being able to pick survival as their expertise at level 2. Which bards can do as well. Sure, mechanically they are probably stronger now than they were before, but At what cost? What I wish they'd done with Rangers is a rework of the class. They should have gone back to the initial concept of the class and, instead of sticking with the Land Warden, tried to broaden it. Most likely even completely shifting it to something more interesting, like a conceptual identity of an adventurer. Someone that has gone on a previous adventure or multiple and uses the knowledge from that experience to be a guiding figure in their current party. It could even still make sense that they have knowledge of certain creatures because perhaps they encountered or fought them on this adventure. I'm not saying adventurers are the perfect identity for rangers, but do you see how it's much easier to come up with characters for this identity than land wardens? You could have an almost Indiana Jones type character, but also a seasoned warrior who has been to some of the darkest parts of the world and has the scars to show for it. The designers should then have looked at those space wilderness features, favorite enemy and natural explorer, and how those features could be changed or improved to be more valuable. Perhaps the natural explorer feature could allow you to pick multiple environments that reflect the locations you traveled through on your past adventure. Maybe giving them more options like caves and dungeons. Allowing players to lean into their survival and exploration skills more often rather than removing them would have been a better direction, I think. Once those things were in place, then they could make sure that the ranger was up to par with the other classes from a balancing perspective. By for example giving them a nice capstone instead of +2 damage. Sometimes. In conclusion, I think it's fair to say the designers missed the mark on this one. Get it? The result of which is a class that doesn't seem to quite fit in with the rest. And that sucks. I get the people who are upset and disappointed to see the ranger, at least for now, continue to be a ways away from what it could be. But hey, if you need a bit of a break from the ranger, I do have my own Blood Mage class that I'm working on, currently in the early stages of playtesting. Check this video out if you want to learn more, and with that said, I hope you have a great day or night, and may the dice roll in your favor.